I am transgender. Growing up, it was scary. I didn't have anyone to talk to. My family didn't understand. It's a struggle to be real. Society, for some reason, doesn't want people to be real. I've come across a lot of transgender children in the world, and I want to do everything in my power to make sure that they don't go through the things that I went through. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what you look like. It just matters, are you a good person? I want someone to know it's okay to be transgender. It's okay to discover that you're not transgender if you think you are. It's okay to be gender fluid. It's okay to be gender neutral. It's okay to be gender non-conforming. It's okay to be male. It's okay to be female. It's okay to be gay, straight, lesbian. It's okay. Just please be a good person. Be kind. Today on Kelly's Quest, I have a very special guest. His name is Boyd Hegarty, and he is the parent of a transgender child. And I'm going to let Boyd introduce you to his child's story. And Boyd, I just want you to know I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. It's an honor to be on your show, and I'm very excited for you and your Kelly's Quest.
Thank you.
Your quest.
Thank you, in my quest.
So Leah is our, my wife Christy and I, we have 3 daughters, and we have a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and our a 10-year-old, Leah, is transgender. She had transitioned a little over 3 years ago, and she sort of, the process started probably, in toddler years. Her 4th birthday, as she was emerging into her 4th birthday, she really wanted to be a princess for her birthday. And she was persistent about wearing dresses. Even at the school where she went to, a preschool, they would have or it was really daycare, it was before preschool, they would have a dress waiting for her because she insisted on wearing the same dress when she would play. So she would get to school, put the dress on, and then take it off before coming home. And then when she got home, she'd put play clothes dresses on. So she's always been, or for so many years, expressing more female, and also identifying as a girl when she was a little bit older than that, 5, 6, 7. And then she transitioned in 1st grade. So I could be saying that wrong. She may have transitioned in 2nd grade. I always get that wrong. But as far as I remember, it was 1st grade. And we have just been sort of along for the ride in a good way, I think, in a trying to be as a loving family to all of our kids as much as we can. And Leah has been a sage, a hero, a kid, and just an amazing instructor on ego strength and humanity and being authentic, and her true self. And our other kids inform us in many ways too. Leah is our trans child, and she's amazing. And we are fortunate to live here in New England, where we moved, although we had a great community back in Indiana as well, in Bloomington. But here in New Hampshire and Massachusetts and New England, there's a very supportive culture for transgender and just people in general. And so there's more that needs to be done. There's work that needs to be done, but we're just so fortunate to be here and meeting by being in New Hampshire and going to Camp Araneutic, Leah going to camp, and us as a family going to family camp, meeting you, Kelly, and you being involved with our Leah's life and our lives. it's just been, it's made it so much more meaningful and healthy, I think.
Right. Well, Boyd, I certainly do appreciate that introduction, and I'm looking forward to this conversation we're going to have. So whenever you're ready, let's talk about what it's like to be a transgender parent, the parent of a transgender child.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Boyd, for coming on the show today. I know we picked a crappy weather day to do it, but we were brave enough to go out and play some really good disc golf in the mud and in the rain, and I saw you smash a tree with a disc, and for the first time in probably 5 years, I saw a disc break into 2 pieces, and away they both flew. And one of the things that impressed me, believe it or not, was it's been a long time since I've seen somebody throw a disc so hard that it smashed into 2, and B, you just shrugged it off. You were like, oh well, I have a disc that is broken now. And I have seen other people that in that exact same situation, their life is caved in. They've lost their best disc, they don't know how to cope anymore, it destroys their entire round. And instead of that, you said, let's go play more disc golf. And I kind of think that that's one of the things I like about you the most is that you've kind of, the impression I get is you just roll with it, but you have a very determined sense of how you want to roll with it. And you weren't so bad at disc golf.
Well, it's very nice of you. Thank you. You know, Kelly, it's funny because I was pretty shocked. But first of all, I just want to thank you for having me on the show, for meeting me to play disc golf, for showing me the course, and you know, originally having a great conversation with you a few months ago where we met and started to get to know each other. You know, I don't know if I'm necessarily someone who always shrugs everything off, but you know, you just kind of deal and try and move on, you know, and some things breaking apart are easier than other things breaking apart, and certainly a disc golf breaking apart is pretty low on at least my worry list.
Right,
but,
right.
It was pretty funny considering it was the very first throw of the round, and considering also that I had collected that disc from outside where one of my or multiple kids were playing with them like they were plates. I think they were serving.
Of course,
plates.
because Frisbee's discs have multiple purposes. And why not let your kids use them for something else? And that's really how we met each other, was through one of your children, through Camp Aaron-Newdick, which I've talked about a lot on the show. Camp Aaron-Newdick has brought so many different people into my life. It's just, I'm gobsmacked all the time that these things have happened. And it brought your daughter into my life. And your daughter is a pistol, an absolute firecracker. The kid's wicked intelligent. There's my New England word for the day. I actually threw out wicked and didn't even think of it. Lord, I'm becoming New England. And but she was one of these kids that was so confident at the camp and so sure of herself. Whenever the talent show happened or anything like that, she knew she was going to lead the talent show. She knew that she was going to do a skit, and she organized all these people. And that's pretty impressive for a kid her age. And then you throw on top of it the fact that your daughter is transgender and has this confidence. I didn't have that growing up, not at all. And I have to think that some of that confidence comes from parents that support her.
Well, that's very humbling to hear, but it's also been very humbling just to know Leah her whole life and to be there with her and to see her ego strength and sense of self. She really is a very confident child. Yes. On multiple levels. And, you know, we hope that continues to be the case. We just want to help sort of be advocates and good parents and love her unconditionally and for who she is. More than unconditionally, I think sometimes sounds trite, but appreciate every aspect and love every aspect of Leah. And quite honestly, that's pretty easy to do.
I agree.
All of our kids are easy to love, and but we've learned a lot, and we're still learning, and there's worries and fears and that go along with a lot of raising children, and so it's just our set of variables is maybe a little different than others, oftentimes, but not always. We have a great community that we've met in and around Boston, and we live in New Hampshire, so in really all over. Through camp, we've met people from really literally all over the world. Well, not literally, but from many spans of the globe.
Yes, there's been a lot of people.
Yeah.
There.
So it's been an eye-opening and really, well, I don't know what to say here.
I think what you're saying by not saying anything is that it makes you speechless. There's not words for it almost, what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can be so bold as to say this and to brag on you on another level just for a second, I didn't know until discussing with you that you are now truly an advocate for more than just your daughter. You were talking about at the university that you work at, this committee that you're with, and that you were at there last night at a committee meeting. And did you even expect, were you an advocate before Leah, or is this kind of evolved through that, or is this something that's always been a passion of yours?
It hasn't always been a passion of mine. Not at all. I mean, I've been supportive of LGBTQ plus and its iterations along the way and people for years. But when you have a child, it changes that perspective immensely. And it's interesting because when we first, well, actually not when we first, but as we went along this journey as a family, my wife Christy and I, we were introduced to a number of organizations in Boston and then in Philadelphia, the Philly Trans Health Conference.
Huge conference.
Huge conference, right? So that actually was my first, and I think our first real sort of place where you are sort of immersed in trans topics, culture, etc., even if it's in just a wing of the conference center in Philadelphia.
Right. Can you give me kind of a time frame of what year this was, so we can give a kind of a reference point?
So this was in, I think, 2011 that we first went to the Trans Philly Health Conference. I could be off, but
in that area.
We've been twice. We went in 2011 and 2014, or maybe in 2012, our first visit. And that's when I spoke with a trans woman in the sort of conference hall, and we had this great conversation, and she told me, make sure that you're a parent first for your child, and then make sure advocacy is after parenting.
Good advice. Very good advice.
I thought, it still really resonates with me. This notion of, and so to answer your question in a very roundabout way, advocacy for me is something that I've kind of said I've kept at arm's length because I'm worried that it gets in the way of me trying to be a good parent. Right. But I'm finding that I need to be a good parent and I need to work on that, and I can also do advocacy work. And I'm not a perfect parent by any means. Nor am I a perfect advocate. I'm constantly learning in committee meetings about what I don't know, more about what I don't know than what I do.
Right.
And assumptions. And it's been humbling, but somewhat fun. We're working on a resource page at UNH and a number of things. But this is one of the initiatives I'm helping with is a updating the resource page for transgender students or gender nonconforming students so that it's gender inclusive.
And that's huge. I mean, that's, if I can just, that's so huge. I mean, it really is, because I come from a place where advocacy was the furthest thought from my family's mind. The advocacy that happened with me was conform to societal wishes. You were born, the doctor said you're male, you're male. End of discussion, that's the advocacy. And it is truly taking me till I moved up here to start understanding that that conformity that I bought into, I'm having to now tear apart. I'm like having to peel an onion one layer at a time to get back down to who Kelly Jenkins truly is. And I'm so thankful for the place that I am right now in my life, because everything has led to this moment, and I truly think that some good can come from this. So I can't begrudge anything that's happened in the past. But if I had been given confidence and security as to my true identity growing up, I don't know what would have happened with my life. I do know that I'm now having to unravel those pieces and try to reconstruct the broken pieces into who I know I am. And you're giving Leah such a head start by saying, kid, I love you, you're my kid. And I imagine, I've met Leah, you've got 2 other daughters. Sometimes it's got to drive you crazy, because these kids of yours, they're all firecrackers. They're all super intelligent, and they're all very creative. They all have a sense of humor. They all are practical jokers. They like to kid around. They're kids. Mm-hmm. And there's so much energy there that I just kind of picture like you running around constantly trying to bring them back into, oh, come on, let's be more not quite kids, because there is so much energy there with them. I mean, they wear me out, and I only had them for 2 weeks, Boyd, so I can only imagine what it's like to just raise 3 children, because I have no children. And then how do you weave in this fact that you've got a transgender child and not forget about the other children? Mm-hmm. Because I'm assuming that that happens with a lot of families that have a child that's different from societal norms. Is how do you cope if you've got other children to make sure that they feel like they're still as important part of the family as this other child? Do you have any hints, or how do you think that you all do that?
I think you have to be cognizant of that, and perhaps my other 2 daughters would be able to speak to how well we're delivering on, or being thoughtful about making sure that attention is equitable. But Leah gets attention beyond us too. She gets attention. She's been in a documentary. She has, just like you were describing, she's a very outgoing person, so she gets a lot of attention. And each of our children, each of our daughters is different. And so we have to, parent that child with equity among them, but also with differentiation. And we try. I don't know how well we do that, but it's something that I'm cognizant of. It's evolving,
Right.
For example, I built a chicken coop with my oldest daughter, Katie, and we were able to raise chickens, and we still have chickens. And then Leah, we sort of said, let's go on a trip together. And then it ended up turning into going and seeing some World Cup soccer games. We all went as a family. So, and then Molly is wanting to do something special like that. So we all try and do have different sort of connective, things that we do. And Christy and I, quite honestly, I can't really speak for Christy, my wife, but I will say about myself. I'm running around haywire. So it's not just the kids, it's all of us, We're just kind of dealing with each other. So
then it works.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, not everything works perfectly by any means, but it works. You know,
And that's big. Just the fact that you're cognizant of the fact that, hey, I've got these two other children, and I have to make sure that they are just as included with the family as everyone else is. That's impressive, because that, just the ability to know that you have to be aware of that is probably a gift that some people don't develop, because by the time they've devoted all of this energy to this one particular child, they're exhausted, and they don't know how to then drum up enough energy to take care of the other children. So just to figure out a way to make it work is pretty impressive, and you should frankly be quite proud of yourself for
thank
it.
you.
Because
Thanks, Kelly.
I'm coming from a point where I see the flip side of it, and just, it's kind of, it doesn't make me regret that I didn't have that, because in my own way I did have something from my family. It wasn't support of my identity, but I had a shelter over my head. I had a bed to sleep on. I never had a hungry belly. So there were some things that my family certainly provided to me that enabled me to be this way, to be to this point, and financial support. And to be able to then go that next step beyond and say, I don't care what society thinks, I'm going to be proactive for my child, is a step that not many parents are willing to take. And when I go to camp and I see the parents that are willing to take that extra step, it makes me feel very fortunate and very proud to be a part of this community, to be out there with you and all of these other people that we're not trying to do anything crazy. We're trying to say, hey, we're here. I'm a human being. All I want is to have a chance at a job, a life. I want to be a contributing member of society. I want to pay my taxes and all that. Give me a fair shake to do it. And you're giving your daughter that chance. And who knows? Who knows? And that's just huge, huge.
Well,
But
you impressed me, Kelly, and I just want to have to say this, that, your story, who you are, having, met you this summer, and to hear where you've come in the last few years, but also the last
years.
I don't want to tell you little years.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Gotcha.
Years, exactly.
In your life, where you've come in your life is just an amazing, amazing thing, and to have the courage to leave Tennessee, to come to Massachusetts, and to show up at a summer camp. That's the progress. That's the, you made that happen for yourself, and
Thank you.
amongst many other things that some I know about and many I don't. But it's heroic, really is.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so having people like you at this camp, who are around our kids and role models and friends and coaches and counselors, that's it wouldn't be camp without that. So I thank you on that front, and also for teaching me some tricks of the trade in disc golf and letting me play with your discs, considering I broke my own on the course.
I still trusted you to throw mine, so it was all fine. It was absolutely fine. And just the whole, on the disc golf course, actually it was kind of funny. You chuck your disc, you rear back, throw it, hit a tree, and it splits in two. We go to the very next tee shot box. I throw a shot way up there. I thought, I've just thrown this a country mile. And you say, oh, that one little branch knocked it down. And then I hear you say, Kelly, here comes your disc. And sure enough, I'm looking, and I don't know how it happened, but my disc rolled at least 200 feet
Oh, yeah.
downhill and hit me in my ankle.
It was
I
amazing.
didn't even have, like, I mean, I meant to do it on purpose just to show you how talented of a disc golfer I truly am. I'm like, watch what I can do. But that was kind of the day that it was on the disc golf course.
Right.
You break a disc, I throw a great shot that decides to turn into a wheel and roll all the way back to me to give me another throw at it. And it was still one of the more fun rounds of disc golf that I've had in a while, even in the rain, even in the mud, even in just all of it, Boyd, all of it. I have one last question before we go off the show that I need to ask you, if you don't mind. And this one might be a little bit hard, I don't know. For me personally, I still have fears. I have a fear that I'm going to lose my job at any moment. I have a fear that somebody is going to become a predator towards me, so I have to be careful in relationship areas. I'm afraid, like I said, economically. I'm afraid physically at times, not up here. As a parent, besides the normal fear of having a child, and besides the normal fear of having a child who's a daughter, how are you managing all of these other unknowns of having a transgender daughter? I mean, is this something that you just push to the side and say, I'm going to be there when it happens, or is this things that you actively work to control, these fears?
That's a great question. That's a piercing question. I think I probably do a number of things.
Right.
I think I probably stash some of it for my own survival need. I think some of it I'm cognizant of, and I think I'm discovering some of these, whether they're underlying fears or they're just epiphanies. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that that's something. And I mean, even just on Facebook the other day, there was something going around, generally within trans friendly communities on Facebook, about 11 different things that trans people face in dating. And without going into details, some of these things it had occurred to me would be issues, and some of them quite honestly scared me, like people who fetish trans folks, and I thought, wow, is that what my daughter's life is going to be like, where she's perceived as as someone's fetish in terms of trying to find a relationship, because you think about this as a parent, you think about what's going to happen in the future for my child. So that's something that you sort of think about. You have these epiphanies all the time, whether they're something you think of yourself or something that's shared with you. And
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you think Leah has any of these fears?
Yes,
yet?
absolutely. I mean, maybe yeah. She has struggled with fertility as an issue since, well, she's 10, and it's probably since she was 6. I think she's been cognizant or at least expressing stress about that. 6, 7. And so, that's something that you sit back and you think, wow, that's not something a 6 or 7-year-old should have to worry about, is if eventually they're not going to be able to have biological children. Now, it's a reality for some children who that might already be, just a biological fact. But to think about, okay, what's the future look like for me in terms of whether or not I can have biological children, and that was a point of sadness for Leah. And so, we talked. You mentioned the sort of the notion that. I broke the disc and moved on. That one I haven't moved on yet from, and I know Leah hasn't. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't speak for Leah, but that's a heavy piece. So, I think you just have to collect the pieces like we did today with my disc, and just.
But you can have them back. They're still in my disc bag if you want both pieces.
Thank you.
To show everybody how strong you are. Look what I did.
Perfect. Yeah, that was funny. So, it's I think I don't have it all figured out, but we take it one day at a time, and we try and be loving, and and also be active and be advocates for our kids. But now, learning that, just being an advocate for your own child and not advocating for the whole community, then you're really missing an opportunity. Without forgetting about the whole reason why this was an important issue in the first place is your child. And so
Right.
keeping a focus and a primary focus on your child. So it's it's an ebbing and flowing thing.
Boy, I hope life is easier for her than it was for me, Boyd. I really and truly do. I think that things are changing. I think there's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of misinformation out there that you're helping just by talking now. We don't know who we're reaching. We don't know. Leah, when she goes to school, she's advocating just by sitting down in a classroom and doing her schoolwork. She's like, I can function in this world as my true, authentic self. And there's still a lot of work to be done. There's some celebrities out there that I kind of feel like are popular enough that everybody probably on the planet knows who they are that are transgender. And they're saying some things right now that I almost feel like may hurt transgender children. And so now we're having to try to unify our community. Just like you were saying, you're advocating for your daughter, but now you're advocating for a community. And somehow or another, we have to bring the community together strong enough that people just know that we are people. That, yeah, we're having to advocate for ourselves. We just are. I mean, I didn't like being unemployed. I wanted a job teaching in Tennessee. I didn't like the fact that just because I was transgendered, I was let go from jobs. And I don't think it's going to be Leah's case. I really think that we're moving to where that point will be okay. There'll be other work, like you say, in relationships and silly things like which bathroom can I go to, which just boggles my mind that we're still having to work on. But I think employment in the future for Leah, if we can keep on this track that we're going on, by the time she's up there, I think we'll be okay in employment. I do. The other areas, I'm not so sure about yet.
It's sad that transgender people are not protected across the board in the United States, and that in some states you can deny a person a job or housing depending on their gender identification or their gender expression. And so that's incredibly disappointing, and we are seeing some of it move, whether it's through legislature. In some cases, the transgender piece of LGBT can be negotiated away from protection, so
Yep.
It's just for LGB, which is excellent, but also awful because the T is dropped, and transgender people are not part of that protection. And you mentioned bathrooms. Bathrooms is a hot button issue, and without getting into depth about the bathroom issue, I will say this, from our own perspective, our school in New Hampshire was incredibly accommodating, allowing Leah to transition and to use the girls' bathroom. And Leah doesn't want to use a boys' bathroom.
Well, of
That's
course
the
not.
last thing. And Leah doesn't want to have to use a specific bathroom that's just for Leah, because that's a form of discrimination. And so, the state of Maine has had some law change due to a trial there, a hearing that protects trans people in all public service settings. So those types of rulings and legislature, as that comes, it's certainly we're going to welcome it.
Right.
But others are going to need to get on board in terms
Yes.
of how they consider how they behave in terms of accommodating transgender people, and it's uncomfortable for some and many. As a parent, when you're realizing, okay, I'm going to be parenting a transgender child, there's a equilibrium there to some degree, and a uncomfortability there. But that's how you grow. That's how you change. That's how you evolve. And
transition never ends for any human. That's what I've learned. You're always changing as a human.
it's one of the reasons I love spending time with you, Kelly, because I learned so much about humanity by being around you, and what you have to say about your own self-concept and perception, and where you are and what you're doing, and your advocacy, self-advocacy, which is essentially telling your story and advocating, and being yourself. I mean, it's really humbling, and I know I've used that word a lot, and I probably don't use that much, but it is, and it's fun too. You're a lot of fun to play disc golf with and chat with too.
Well, yeah, we're always going to chuck plastic. We're going to do it again. I like to say we're going to chuck plastic all over the woods. And that's one of the places that I find freedom, and I find myself, is through athletic events and through participation in sports. And that's a whole nother topic that we can have about, because I know Leah's an athlete.
Yeah.
So then that brings up this whole ball of wax now of what is considered female enough.
Right.
I guess I don't know how else to describe it. How female do you have to be before you can play with the girls? And that's such a interesting topic. I know that the International Olympic Committee says that if you've had surgery and you've been on hormones for a couple of years, you can participate. I also know that a lot of transgender people do not want to have surgery. That's not their goal in life. So if they're an athlete, they're excluded from participating. Now there's some sports like roller derby where I get the impression that it's really starting to change in roller derby, that transgender inclusion is happening at a faster rate. And in disc golf, I've been totally accepted by the community. The women don't seem to mind, but there's still a long ways to go. I don't like the fact that somehow or another the surgery is the point where you've got to do it at this point. If you don't have surgery, you can't do it. Well, hormone blockers, hormones, all of that stuff effectively makes me equally, I am not as strong as I used to be. The estrogen certainly made me weaker, made me a lot weaker. And then you get to kids that are in elementary school and haven't reached puberty yet, to have segregated sports at that point, and intentionally then say that you don't fit our criteria. It's just, I mean, personally, I can't wrap my head around it, that I couldn't have played in elementary school on the girls' team. And good Lord, I hope Leah gets to play whatever team she wants to. Be cool to see her like a professional soccer player one day representing the U.S. in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I have to say, our local Oyster River Youth Association has been absolutely spot on with us and Leah.
Good.
And incredibly accommodating, to the point where it wasn't even a topic. It was just absolutely. We absolutely, Leah, they know she's trans, and that's just part of who Leah is, and she absolutely can play with the girls. And so she plays soccer. That's her main sport she plays, which is fun because I played soccer and I love soccer. My youngest, Molly, also plays soccer, and then my oldest, Katie, played lacrosse for a while, which I also played. So it was like one year they just all decided to play sports, which was like crazy because I never saw that coming. But they've been good. What I worry about, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the athletic association rules in the middle school and high school. But there probably will be more barriers as she ages,
Yes.
to participation, and we're gonna take it as it comes. Right now, our focus and my wife Christy's focus she's really spearheaded this more than I, is helping out with educating our local school system, and we've had success there with our Oyster River School District, and we've been very happy of the work that the school district has done, and the teachers and the principals have been wonderful, and so we're very fortunate, or we feel fortunate that we have such wonderful people in and around us. And I know this may sound trite or unbelievable, but we really do. And we love living in New England, especially, New Hampshire, but that's where we are. And because in our little town, people are so supportive. And wow, it's mind-blowing.
It is. I mean, just the difference of allowing me to be open here versus Tennessee. I was so nervous in Tennessee about opening up that my closest friends, I was not comfortable enough to tell them that I was transgender because of previous incidents that had happened with school systems, with telling other people and all the reactions. I just never even felt comfortable telling people that I was transgender. So I was living this stealth life, which is perfectly fine. It got me through it. But to come up here into Massachusetts and to see that just basically what I've discovered is if I can become a productive member of society, that's what they want. Mm-hmm. They want me to come up here and help, make money, pay taxes, be a part of a community, and that's what really it is in New England is, can you help the community? Can you pay taxes? Can you provide money? Can you, do this? And in the South, it's more of a, and I don't mean to say it, but it's institutionalized discrimination. My friends were wonderful, and I think that they would have accepted me, Boyd, had I had the courage to have told them. But I know for a fact that institutions, public schools, things like that, no way would they accept me if I was open trans. I mean, I advocate at my school openly up here. That opportunity didn't even come close to existing in Tennessee. I mean, there was no opportunity. If you did that, you were gone. And so you couldn't do it. And you're right. This is a good place to be. It's a very good place to be up here. And I feel fortunate to be a part of it and part of your life now. I think we're doing good.
Likewise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Boyd, I greatly appreciate you coming on to the show today. I mean, this has been a blast. All the way from cracking discs and seeing discs roll down mountainsides to having this conversation that I am sure that people are going to find just very enlightening. And so thank you for doing that, because it takes bravery to change the world.
Well, you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. And thank you for having me on the show, Kelly. I really appreciate you inviting me and asking great questions about Leah and
thank you.
Being able to spend time today.
Good. Give me a hug.
No.